Alright folks, how you doing? So this is my reaction slash response to Michael Franzese's video where he's talking about Jussie Smollett. Well, it's very obvious that Michael doesn't know what exactly he's dealing with in the case of Mr. Smollett. And that, to my mind, is a mid-range narcissist. In fact, you should go check out H.G. Tudor's video, Jussie Smollett, a very victim narcissist. Now, the reason I say that Jussie Smollett fits the profile of a mid-range narcissist is because you can rule him out from being a lesser narcissist, because what he did, his whole scheme with the two other guys, I'm sure if you're watching this, you know the story. It shows a degree of planning. Now, a lesser narcissist doesn't plan, and a lesser narcissist is a bull in a china shop for the most part, with maybe some exceptions with upper lesser type A's. But even they are blunt instruments, What you see with lesser narcissists is what you get. There's no front, there's no facade. They just act instinctively, minute to minute to minute. There's no premeditation, there's no forethought, nothing like that. So that completely rules him out, in my opinion, of being a lesser narcissist. He's not a greater narcissist either, because if he were a greater narcissist, his story wouldn't have all the holes in it that it does, to the point that the jury in his trial saw right through it. And it was so obvious. Even Dave Chappelle pointed out in his comedy skit that he did with Netflix, it was so obvious that he was lying. So even people who should be on Jussie Smollett's side could see that this was all bullshit. Now, is Michael Franzese correct in saying that what Jussie Smollett did was not intended to further racially divide America? Actually, yes, he was right. What Jussie Smollett did was to benefit himself, because narcissists, especially mid-range ones, their only agenda is promoting and pushing themselves. They don't care about the country, they don't care about any particular race or ethnicity or any of that. They're narcissists, they only care about themselves. So what Jussie Smollett did not have a political motive or a racial motive. Jussie Smollett's motive was Jussie Smollett. That's it, cut and dried, plain and simple. It was to promote himself, it was to push his career, it was maybe to get a pay rise. It was all about facade management, basically. It's the same with the Princess of Woke Me Again, Harry's wife. Everything she does is to promote herself. Is to promote Sussex brand, because promoting Sussex is promoting her. When you're dealing with narcissists, especially mid-range narcissists, everything and everyone around them is just tools or appliances or sources of fuel or character trait acquisition, etc. and so forth. See H.G. Tudor. He'll fill in the blanks for you there. But check out, Jussie Smollett, A Very Victim Narcissist by H.G. Tudor. That will really, provide insight. But what I will say though, and I don't know if this sounds like I'm defending Jussie Smollett, I'm not. But when he goes to the courtroom and sits up on the stand and defends his position, he actually believes what he's saying. He genuinely believes it, because the narcissism being what it is, the self-defense mechanism that it is, rewrites history. See, it's very easy to catch out a mid-range narcissist, but you will never get them to see that they've lied. You will never get them to admit that they've misled people, even though they obviously have. Even though they've lied, you'll never get them to admit it, because the narcissism is a self-defense mechanism. The narcissism is there to protect the narcissist. So Jussie Smollett actually believes he was a victim of a hate crime, actually believes he was the victim of a racial crime. Why? Because the narcissism in his subconscious, because remember, mid-range narcissism, that means that the narcissist is operating on a subconscious level. They don't know what they are. They have a degree of cognitive empathy, but they don't have any emotional empathy. This is a very important thing to point out. So, what Jussie did involved a degree of planning, but it's so obvious that you've even got Dave Chappelle on Netflix pointing out how ridiculous it was. Because being still a fairly underdeveloped form of narcissism, for lack of a better way of putting it, they're not graders or ultras, they'll never get caught for anything ever, but mid-range narcissists, they only act to promote themselves in that moment, at that moment. They're not thinking 10 moves ahead like a chess master. They're not thinking how this is going to blow up in their face, a month or two or a year or two or 10 years down the line, because every thing that they plot and scheme and plan at the mid-range level will eventually catch up on them. And that's not really anything to do with the law of karma or anything. It's just that they're kind of sloppy. You know, they'll leave a trail. You know, they'll leave more of a trail than a slug. You know, it's easy to catch them out if you're paying attention. Lesser narcissists do no planning whatsoever. So, you know, when you've got, for example, your Donald Trump's upper lesser type B, with him there's no facade. He is what he is. With the mid-rangers, there is a facade to maintain. Now, the other thing that I had to really laugh at this, Michael Franzese was saying was that Jussie Smollett should go to the court, to the judge, and apologize. Listen, you will never get a sincere apology out of a narcissist. You can forget it. You know, you have more chance of changing the laws of gravity than getting an apology out of a narcissist, or at least a sincere apology. Now, Jussie might apologize to the court under certain circumstances, but only for particular self-serving reasons. You know, either to assert control over the situation, assert control over the court and the justice system over there, to maintain a facade. The only reason why he would apologize is to promote himself. He wouldn't apologize for any sort of empathy. He doesn't have empathy. He's a narcissist. You know, he's not particularly, you know, mid-range narcissists are not particularly bright either. Lesser narcissists are dumb as the wall behind me. You know, they're blunt instruments, are really not very smart at all. Lesser narcissists are, you know, the higher up you go in the narcissist spectrum, the higher the IQ, basically. You know, that's one of the ways that you can easily sniff out what kind of a narcissist that you're dealing with. Mid-rangers are kind of intelligent, but not really, you know, because they make a lot of clumsy, sloppy errors, you know. So the idea that Jussie Smollett is going to go and apologize to the judge is laughable. If he does, it'll be so obvious that it's bullshit that it would have been better if he just kept his mouth shut, because people will see through it so easily. They'll see through it like that. But a lot of people are misreading the situation with Jussie Smollett, thinking that, you know, he's an antagonizer, he's trying to, you know, further divide, you know, America on racial lines. Nah, it's nothing to do with that. It's just about promoting himself. So Michael is right about that. But does Jussie Smollett deserve to go to prison? Listen, you're dealing with a narcissist. It doesn't matter either way. You know, I don't think he's going down, because if he went down, you can imagine what the riots would be like. You know, certain political movements would have a fucking field day with that. So should he go down? Listen, it doesn't matter whether he goes down or not at this point, because you're dealing with a narcissist. He's never going to admit that he was wrong. Never with a straight face anyway. He's never going to admit it and mean it, because his narcissism rewrites everything in his head from minute to minute. They don't think ahead. They're not thinking about the court, you know, a year and a half from now, or the trial in 6 months. They're only thinking, how can I assert control right now over everyone and everything around me in this room where I am sitting right now? You're not dealing with a very sophisticated creature. Not as primitive as a lesser, not as diabolical genius, Lex Luthor type as a greater. But, you know, sending Jussie to prison one way or another makes absolutely no difference, really, because he's still a narcissist at the end of the day. You know, he will maintain to the day that he dies, and mean it, that he was the victim of a racial crime, that was racial abuse, because his narcissism has rewritten it in his head to assert control. You really have to understand what narcissism is, right? So Michael's kind of right, but he's not getting the full picture, and this is why it's so important to check out HG Tudor. I'll link it below. Jussie Smollett, a very victim narcissist. Go check it out. Thanks for watching.